The Pyros are funny little fellow, aren't they? Even after years and years of teasers and hints to what the Pyro could be, we're no closer to finding out than we were when the game launched. And no, we aren't taking Mr. I Gave the Post Undertale word on his theory. No matter who says what, we're never going to know exactly who or what the Pyro really is. Not even Valve's own big reveal has revealed that much apart from their mental state, really. Yeah, that's right, we're talking about Pyroland today, the only major reveal to what the Pyro could be even to this day. We've had small things like handbags in lockers and the other mercs calling the Pyro a woman, which I should mention, just because I use Fempyro does not mean I think the Pyro is a woman, I just really like the mod. As you know, Valve released the Meet the Team videos over the years, starting with releasing a couple before the game even released, such as the Heavy, Soldier, Engineer, and oddly enough Demo Man, whose video was released one day before the game's release, which I did not know before researching for this video. These videos showed off each of the mercs' personalities and what made them stand out from each other. Each of them to this day are superb and a must watch for anyone. As you also know, these were released from time to time in updates, with some such as Meet the Spy giving the sniper a new scar on his face, and even revealing not yet seen weapons such as the flare gun back in Meet the Sniper. All of these small additions were neat nods and hints to future content and helped show what made each individual of the team special. We got to the point where we only had one team member to meet, that being the Pyro. The most mysterious of the group being the very last to be shown off was a smart move on Valve's part as it helped build up the mystery surrounding the mumbling maniac. Time would tell, and on June 25th it began. The Pyromania update was announced alongside the small note that this would include the final Meet the Team short, Meet the Pyro, including the timer to count down to the release. The days went by, with the first day showing the riveting SD Doomsday, which everyone loves, day 2 revealing new sets for the Scout, Soldier and Sniper, and funnily enough only one weapon for the Pyro, the Scorch Shot. Day 3 however is where the big reveal happened. We finally got to see what the Pyro truly was under the mask and... well, that was unexpected. In probably the strangest reveal for the Pyro, it was shown that they saw the world in a cutesier manner compared to everyone else. Hell, this was revealed way back in 2010 by Robin Walker himself in an interview with Criticast. He said that we'd see how the world is viewed through the Pyro's eyes, so really considering that, this was not what the community was expecting at all. But that's not a bad thing. In fact, I believe Pyroland is nothing but great. They had the building blocks for something unique that at first started out as a fun addition but was forgotten, just like plenty of game modes and ideas. I think they just kind of didn't put a lot of effort into making it accessible or fully flesh it out to make it a worthwhile concept for players to use and come back to often. You want to know why the Halloween event is as popular as it is? Valve consistently kept adding new and wacky ideas that built on the previous year's editions to make it a must play every year. While the Halloween event only coming about once a year makes it more exciting when it finally happens, I believe that Pyroland has the upper hand in that it's accessible anytime the player so chooses. When we were introduced to this brand new world, the TF2 team added 4 exclusive items for the Pyro and 2 all-class items for players to access Pyroland. For Pyro, we received a Rainblower, a reskin of the stock flamethrower that shot rainbow flame particles instead of the usual fire, and the Lollychop, a very simple reskin of the stock fire axe. The Pyro also received 2 cosmetics that allowed players to access Pyroland, being the Burning Bongos and the Infernal Orchestrina. These were all shown off in Meet the Pyro, as well as are, in my opinion, really nice additions. At one point I considered the Rainblower to be my favourite weapon because of how unique it was in execution compared to the other flamethrowers at the time. Sure, it's just stock again, but the goofy aesthetic and rainbow flames made it stand out. The Lollychop is, well, it's fine. Yeah, we got a unique taunt for it that no other melee weapon has, but at the end of the day it's just a stock fire axe, and compared to every other choice the Pyro had even at the time, it was a lackluster weapon, but it was a good looking one at the very least. Now where have I heard that before? The cosmetics for Pyro, the Burning Bongos and Infernal Orchestrina, are fine enough. They fit the Pyroland look really well and the goofiness is shown off pretty decently. There's one glaring problem with these that I'll get onto soon. The first item, and probably the closest we'll get to other classes cosplaying as the Pyro, is the Pyrovision goggles. These allow any class to access Pyroland and look pretty awful honestly. Everyone who played got these in vintage form, and others were able to get a pair by dominating someone with the goggles on and earning the achievement for doing so. The second all-class item is the Balloonicorn, which is arguably seen as the cute mascot for the game nowadays, with plenty of merch and just being a great cosmetic overall. This is the only good looking all-class cosmetic that allows you to see Pyroland regardless of who you choose. Later on in the Mecha update we would get the Rain Doonicorn, a Christmas variant of the Balloonicorn, which is fine, but let's be honest, the original will always be superior. Here's the problem with all of these items though, apart from the goggles, you can't see them normally. Unless you yourself are using any of these Pyroland items, none of the ones I've mentioned are noticeable in game. And I kinda get why. The goggles are the only item looks-wise that fit with everything else in the normal game, but this drastically devalues any worth or use of the other 5 items. Instead of a colourful Pyro walking around with small drums and a flying friend next to them, you'll likely just see a default Pyro, which defeats the purpose of equipping the cosmetics and weapons in the first place. TF2 is, apart from being a great first-person shooter, a fantastic way to show some creativity in how you make your characters look, no matter how good or bad they might be. Having items that can't be seen unless you yourself equip a similar item defeats the whole point of individuality and even using them. You'll enjoy running around looking all cutesy and happy, but when everyone else can't see it, it loses some of the charm in my opinion. If there was an option to allow you to see the cosmetics no matter how style breaking they may be, I believe that would be a good compromise, allowing those who still don't want to see them to have that choice, and those who do want to see them no matter what cosmetics they themselves have on at the time. There have been a lot of items included recently that keep the Pyroland look but not have any kind of restriction like the original items, so why not add that option I mentioned before of seeing the items no matter what? Even with all of this in mind, my god, the aesthetic of Pyroland is so fucking good and fits the Pyro to a T. We've always known that the Pyro has probably had a few screws loose in their head, so finally seeing what they see is probably the best reveal they could have done for the Pyro, without revealing everything and keeping ambiguity about them. That's what really makes the Pyro stand out, even with no discernible features like any of the other 8 classes. Let's get into the nitty gritty of Pyroland now. As you can clearly see, the maps are much more colourful and vibrant to their original counterparts. In the Meet the Pyro shore, it's seen as an extremely cartoony landscape with a very pastel-like colour scheme with big flowery meadows, bright blue skies, and include giant pudgy cats, dogs and hamsters floating around. Giant lollipops and candy are seen sprouting out of the ground, and near the end we see a small town full of candy shops and party decorations, all while the song Do You Believe in Magic by the Loving Spoon is played in the background. I'd play some, but you know, copyright. I'm sure you've heard it at this point though, fits the world very well overall. Unlike the game where everyone still looks the same, in the short the blue team are seen as babies with wings, with their normal heads on chubby diapered bodies, which implies that Pyro sees pretty much everyone like that. In the comic Ring of Fire, we see that fire is fairly bright and colourful, which implies that it's the main source of the scenery present in Pyroland, and without it, the Pyro sees the world as boring and grey, with people appearing as rectangular creatures and speaking garbled language. This is pretty good world building and showing us how Pyroland is perceived in the eyes of the Pyro. In-game, however, there are only a handful of maps that really replicate this effect as a whole. These maps include 2-4, Badlands including the Arena Control Point and King of the Hill variants, Badwater Basin, Doomsday, the map which was included alongside the Pyroland concept, Dust Bowl, Gold Rush, Gravel Pit, High Tower and Viaduct. Now if you don't include the 2 different Badlands variants, that's only 9 maps that completely change the look to what the Pyro would perceive. Now it should be mentioned that Bomb Blitz, Foundry, Manor and Manhattan are affected, but only by adding strings of holiday lights, which I don't think is enough to exactly count as Pyroland variants of those maps. Considering that there are over 100 maps that are labelled as official, that means that the number of maps with complete Pyroland overhauls equates to less than 10% of the overall map pool. This is shockingly low for what is basically canonical lore for the Pyro. This isn't me demanding that Valve suddenly make a Pyroland variant for every single map, since that would be an asinine request for one, and 2, a lot of the maps in the official rotation, as of the time this video is recorded, are community made, meaning that a lot of map creators wouldn't ever consider this as a must-have for their maps when submitting them to the workshop. Regardless of what's made by who, I still think this is a massive misstep in fleshing out this brand new world of sunshine and rainbows. Just like Man vs Machine, Valve seem to have this tendency of doing a couple of ideas and then never touching the concept again. In fact, this has been seen in the number of newly added features and game modes over the years, but that's a whole different topic for a separate video. My point is that Valve seems to give up on concepts fairly quickly. At the very least, I would have liked the Pyroland concept to have been used on the maps that existed up to that point at the very least, and if you want to go bigger, at least on every Valve made map. In fact, it seems that that's what decision was made to begin with, as if you check the maps changed by Pyroland, you'll find that each one was made by Valve. I still think that 9 total maps are way too little, and that at the very least you could have bumped that number up. Or hell, why not flesh out the idea fully to the ones that just added Holiday Light? That's at least an additional 5 maps right there. Then I think if you added another 6 to add Pyroland to, a solid 20 maps out of the 100 plus with Pyroland would be a good number to have. Really give it more room to breathe and evolve ideas, like with how Halloween events every year really fleshed out that concept. Hell, maybe even add 1 or 2 every April or so to add to the collection, but at this point I'm getting ahead of myself. So what exactly does equipping Pyroland items in general do other than change individuals to a magical girl anime on those 9 maps? Well, other than the Pyrovision exclusive items becoming fully visible, some features from the birthday mode are active. For starters, health picks were replaced by cakes and ammo was replaced by wrapped presents. Gifts from someone exploding will also be replaced by gears, toys and other silly items, and cables will be adorned by light, including the ropes for grapple hooks. Instead of blood coming out when you shoot someone, balloons, streamers and confetti will pour out instead. For the general changes, some lights will be turned on or glow brighter instead, such as the lights outside of the left side of Red Spawn on Sawmill. Other than in Doomsday, signs in objective-based games like Capture the Flag will instead read rather than their usual text. The company logos that appear around on maps will have some of them erased with white paint, but some such as the Cornwall sign on Dust Bowl will be changed to the word candy to fit the theme more. Resupply lockers in Spawn will also have their looks changed, being coloured purple with yellow handles, with pictures of a cuddly dog replacing the bullet side and a cuddly cat replacing the health side. The grenades seen on Soldier, Pyro and Demoman, along with any other items that replaced them, will appear as baby bottles instead. Every player's voices apart from their own will become high pitched, along with them being surrounded by sparkles when set alight instead of fire, except for yourself in third person. Some smoke effects will become bubbles like the Soldier's rocket launcher and flares from Pyro's flare gun. One of the funnier changes is that players will laugh when hurt or killed instead of the usual death and injury sounds. Outside of Pyrovision, the Rainblower and Lollychop will appear as the stock flamethrower and fire axe respectively. However, if you're killed by someone with these equipped, along with any other Pyroland item, you will still see them in death cams, whether you're in Pyroland yourself or not. Every single flame effect, even including the thermal thrusters, will appear multicolored, changing how they look as they travel. The Dragon's Fury is different as it will fire a large ball of lollipops and rainbow swirls instead, so it's nice to see they implemented some changes for it even years later. In the kill feed, domination messages will read as player is best friends with player, while revenge messages will read as player broke up with player. Finally, some cosmetics will also appear in the kill feed as assisting the player whenever another player does an assist with the kill. These items are typically the ones you would consider as the animal cosmetics or little buddy items such as the Pocket Pyro or Soulmate. Essentially, if there's some sort of small creature, they will count as assisting you. And even better is the fact that if you give them a custom name, it'll show that name in the kill feed. So if you haven't tried, go out and give some of the items a go and see what counts or not. You can always check on the wiki regardless. As you can see, there is a lot of work that was put into Pyroland back in 2012, and in retrospect you can see how there were only a handful of maps chosen. Going through these changes and what items are Pyroland exclusive, it didn't leave much room for improvisation. It pretty much hit every point that was considered major and changed it accordingly. And when you look at the fact most of the Pyroland items were obviously made with Pyro in mind, that limits the usage pretty hard. The other 8 classes have either ugly goggles or a floating pet that some may not want to use in order to access the world, and with a plethora of great cosmetics out there, they aren't going to use these 2 unless they somehow coincide with what they're already using. Pyro gets the better end of the deal with 2 weapons and 2 cosmetics, meaning that if you don't want to change your look to use Pyroland, you can resort to changing one of your weapons instead. This isn't even considering the fact that retexturing entire maps to fit the aesthetic is time consuming, and Valve clearly wanted to move on to bigger projects for the game, with MVM just months away from release at the time. It's also worth noting that Pyroland takes up more resources to power than the regular TF2 look, so if your computer can't handle the new look, why would you even bother? The upside that Halloween has over this is that brand new maps can be created to evolve concepts, whereas Pyroland relies on retextures instead, so unless they create an entirely new map, they're stuck. It's genuinely disheartening that such a cool concept wasn't expanded upon much after the initial reveal. I stand by my thoughts that Pyroland is one of the coolest additions the game has ever received. It's neat that they included the Pyroland effect on the Pyro's latest weapons from Jungle Inferno years later, but I feel like there could be so much more. Like I mentioned earlier, a fully fleshed out Pyroland map for the month of April or a more appropriate time would be so cool to see alongside some more items that not only allow you to access Pyroland, but look good too. I can't be too sad about all of this though. The fact that Valve went out of the way to do all of this for a single class shows their dedication to building characters even without revealing what's under that person's mask. But what are your guys' thoughts on Pyroland? Do you think it's a concept that would have been made better if it got expanded upon, or do you not really enjoy it? And if so, why? Let me know down below. Follow me on all the doodly doos, and that does it for this one. This has been your Fem Pyro enthusiast BonOakley signing out. See you guys in the next one.